Hello, my name is Colin Hill, and I'm here to talk about training for a long distance swim. This could be a 10K swim, it could be an Ironman swim, or it could be the channel, the English Channel, or another big swim that you want to achieve. Here I am in my swim shop. I'm located at Ullswater. I've got an endless pool here just behind me, and I've also got a boat on the lake at Ullswater where I do coaching and guiding. What I want to speak around is really this year I've done some big swims. I do big swims every year. In January, I swam the Cook Strait in New Zealand. That was an 8.5 hour swim. Really tough swim, really strong currents and tides. Mentally tough, physically quite hard. I was in China. I did a winter swim race over in China. I raced down the length of Ullswater with 650 other people, and I came first in that, which was great. And I swam around Manhattan Island this year as well, which is a 28-mile swim, and lots of other swims as well. So, I do swim a lot and I enjoy it. And I guess that's one of the main things. So that's maybe why you should listen to me for, is that I've been doing this for years and I still enjoy doing it. I'm very passionate about it, and hopefully you get a few sort of tips. Now, if you see me glancing down, I've got some notes. I'm going to try and make sure I hit all the key points. I'm going to try and sort of keep moving through this as well so it doesn't get too onerous, so that you can sort of pick up what you need to know, and then you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about without going overboard on the explanation. But number one, before I start off, bit of a disclaimer. When anybody talks about how they train for things like the channel or whatever it is, other people have always got ideas they think they should have done, what you shouldn't do. So everyone's got different ideas about this, but this is how I do it. So basically, take it or leave it. This works for me. And as I said, I love what I do. So other people might have some different advice, but that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the very beginning. People come to me often here at the endless pool and say they're training up for a big race. And the first thing what they want to do, which is a great idea, is get your technique sorted out. You may be a decent swimmer, but being a long distance swimmer can be slightly different from what you're used to. Swimming fast for 100 meters, 200 meters in the pool, it's very different from swimming the same pace hour after hour after hour. And obviously the swim itself, it's a pyramid, okay? When you get to the top, that's the actual swim. But there's all this work underneath, all this training you have to do first. And if your technique isn't good, you might not get to the pinnacle, you might not get to the swim itself. So get that sorted first. Now, you might want to find somebody who understands, who knows about long distance swimming. So some swim coaches are great at coaching people for doing short distances, but not really that long distance and understanding what it involves. So for me, I'm looking for a couple of things. I'm looking for balance in the water. You want everything to be nice and high, just below the surface. Don't anything dropping down deep, the kick, the arms, and also you're trying to stay nice and streamlined. So any propulsion you get, it's sending you through the water and you're not working against yourself. So I won't go into too much detail about the technique itself, but if you can, go and visit somebody who knows what they're doing. Underwater cameras are ideal because that's where it's all kicking off often and where people are losing their balance. You can look good from the top, very different underneath the water. So try and get some sort of session done first before you start to put the miles and miles in. Okay, so it's a great place to start. Okay, so technique number one. Number two, training itself. So how are you going to build up for a big swim? Now, if you're going to swim the English Channel, for example, you're talking about a big mileage on the day, and you've got to be confident in yourself that you can do it. You've got to be mentally tough and physically tough and acclimatized. Okay, so let's talk about the training side of things. Now, when I started training for the Cook Strait, that was in January. So most of my training had to be pool-based. I didn't have a chance to go overseas to do any warm water training, which I sometimes like to do. I love to go to Lanzarote, for example, and train out there. I couldn't do this time. So majority of my training was in the pool. Now, I would say I am a long distance swimmer, and that's really important. Some people say to me, I want to swim the channel. And I'll say, amazing, what swims have you done so far? and they haven't actually done any open water swimming, or they've not done any long swims. And I always say to them, look, become a long distance swimmer first. Understand it, enjoy it, do different swims and build up to it distance wise. So I guess, I have done a lot of that work in the past. So mentally I'm prepared for certain things, and I've done a lot of acclimatization swims. So I'm sort of ready for some of that. So that's why for my New Zealand swim, I knew that I could do a lot of pool-based stuff, and that's what I had to do. So when you go to train in the pool, a lot of people's first reaction is, I don't like pool swimming, I find it boring. I like to be in the open water. I mean, we all love to be in the open water. I love to be in the open water. It's the best place to be. But the speed, I think the pool is where you get a lot of your speed and fitness. Okay, you're keeping that. The open water, acclimatization and some endurance. But you can get the endurance from the pool as well, and that's what I'm going to speak about. So, building up in a swimming pool, it's building blocks. That's how you got to think of this. There's a few factors here. One, you've got your friends and family to think about, okay? You have to go to the pool mentally calm, knowing that you can swim for your allotted time and not be thinking, I should get out, I need to do something, I shouldn't really be here, everyone's going to be upset at me. So you've got to get everyone on side. You've got to, speak to them, tell them what you're going to do. And each building block is going to be you increasing the amount of sessions or the distance as you are progressing through your training. And if you do it in stages, people will come along with you. Okay, it's, once you start to swim, for example, say you're a 2 times a week swimmer doing 2 kilometers. That's, 2 or 3 kilometers. It's pretty standard for a lot of people. Okay, if you say, okay, I'm going to go swimming 3 times a week, I'm going to do 3 kilometers every swim. Okay, you start doing that. The days are spread out. You're doing your swim. You're doing that for a good few weeks, just building that up. You're getting used to it. Your body's getting used to it. And also everyone around you is getting used to it. And before you know it, it's completely the norm. You're used to going swimming at your set times, what works for you, a bit quieter in the pool or the lake. And, that's a good building block that's a good base to build from. And then what you're going to do over the months is just increase things. Okay, a nice, definite step up. You'll know when you're ready. You know when you're going in the pool, and all of a sudden 3K isn't like, oh my goodness, when's this 3K going to end? You get in the pool in 3K, you get into the end, feel pretty good, get out, yeah, job done. That'll happen, and then it's time to think, right, I've got to increase this. Now, I'm going to be completely blunt with you. For my big swims, I do a lot of training. I love being in the pool or the open water, doing these training sessions. But I am aiming for some big sets, okay? So, but I do build up the same. So, so you're going from 3 times a week, 3K. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is go 4 times a week. Keep them 3K for now, okay? Get that embedded. Feeling good, 4 times a week, 3K. Everyone's happy, you're happy. Build that up. 4 times a week. For me, to swim for an hour is 4K. You might be slightly longer, but you want to be swimming for an hour, the next one. So not just, in the leisure centre for an hour, actually swimming for at least an hour. So for me, as I said, that'd be 4K. For you, might be a bit longer, a bit shorter. So you're doing an hour swim, say 4K, 4 times a week. It's a bit of a step. It's going to take a while before you're feeling good with that. Okay, but just keep that going. Get to the 4K. And then that's the next step you've taken. And then you're going to build up from that. And then you might want to be doing 5 times a week, okay, at 4K. And that might be it for a good month, just trying to hit that. 5 times a week doing 4K. That's a good amount to do. And then you want to step up eventually, doing just a little bit further than that, okay? Throwing in some 5K sessions in there. Yeah, just pushing it out a little bit. So maybe, once a week on the weekend, you've got your long swim. your long swim is going to be a 5K. And then eventually that can build up and build up. So for me personally, at the end of my training swims before a big swim, I'm doing some pretty big mileage. I remember the first step is I'm doing 100 kilometers a month. By the end, I was actually doing 200 kilometers a month. And, the minimum amount I would do a session would be 6K. Every session, quite comfortably by the end. Felt good about it. So 6K, and, sometimes there was more. Quite often there was more. So that was kind of my goal. Hit 6K every time I went in the pool. How often did I swim a week? Well, to be honest, I would try and get in the pool every day, because some days it's just not going to happen. Work takes over, family life, you can't get in. But if I plan to go in every day, then if I missed a day, not a problem, because that just happens. It's sort of, I said, we're not, unfortunately, elite athletes. We can't just swim. Other stuff goes on. Life takes over. Pools closed, or, there's too many people in the lane, you can't get a good swim, you can't go to the lake, whatever it is. So I did plan to swim every day. And also for me, my thought process on this was I enjoyed the accumulative effect. I would go in one day, do 6K, pretty tired that night, get to the pool the next day, feeling tired. It would take me a good kilometer to warm up. By the end of the session, I'm feeling great again. Same thing the next day, go in, I'm tired, build it up, feel good by the end of the session. So I felt that doing back-to-back sessions for me at the end of all these steps worked really well. And I felt mentally tough and physically really strong. Now, I don't just jump in and swim. I go in the poolside early. I've got my stretch cords. I'm doing some stretching on the poolside before I get in, get my rotator cuffs warmed up. I do this before every session. If you speak to elite athletes, elite swimmers, and I've hung out with those guys, I used to commentate on all the elite races around the world, and I'll see them before every single session. They're doing their lands warm-ups. It's a good practice, especially when you're long distance swimming. You're going to feel the benefits from stretching everything before you get in the pool. So think about that as well. And also I've obviously got my drink bottle on the pool side. And when I'm doing these big sessions, 6 kilometers, 8 kilometers, whatever it happened to be, I would often have some food waiting for me in my locker. So when I got out, I would get some food straight into me, so get some protein into me. Sometimes a protein drink. When I got out, I would neck a protein drink. I just want to get something to fuel myself after a big swim. So so I'm drinking through the swim and then fueling up after the swim. So that's the way I looked at swimming training, is that it's big blocks, building up, okay, step at a time, increasing the distance, increasing the mileage over months until I'm where I want to be. Obviously, for my New York swim, when I did that, the 28-mile swim, that was in July. So I was able to swim in the open water, and I would do length of leg swims. I would do, sessions, longer sessions in the open water. I was doing nice 5K swims. But I still kept the pool stuff going. I didn't do one or the other. I was doing open water sessions, but I was still going in the pool and doing my hard sessions. So that's another thing about the pool swimming, is when I'm doing my big sessions, and I want to talk about what I did now, I don't have time to do lots of 25s and 50s and a bit of backstroke. I was doing big block sessions. That works for me. So I'd go in, I might do a 2K warm-up. I'll then do 1K pull buoy. And when I'm doing my 1K pull buoy, I'm thinking about my catch and pull. I might put my fins on for a kilometer. When I've got my fins on, I'm working off the wall, hard underwater, and I'm making sure I'm breathing in the streamline because I've got nice acceleration with the fins. I'm keeping it long stroke with my fins on. Then I'm back to full stroke, back to pull buoy, back to fins, maybe some snorkel, maybe some paddles. Although I did find when I was doing big mileage, I did less paddles just to save the shoulders a little bit. But I might put some finger paddles on just for the feel of the water. When I've got paddles on, I'm really thinking about my body roll, rolling towards the pull. So I don't faff around with lots of small sets. I'm doing big blocks, but I'm keeping a good pace going. I'm swimming hard pretty hard the whole time. You know, I'm using what's around me in the pool. You know, I'm seeing how fast I can lap somebody. You know, if there's somebody jumping on my toes, I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping ahead of them, keeping a good pace for them. I'm not hanging around. I'm trying to hold a good pace for 2K, hold a good pace for 1K. I find my watch great. Now, I never used to wear a watch when I was a competitive swimmer, but I do find it really good to go back after the session and just see what my 1K blocks were. Really interesting. So for me, I'm hoping to hold just under 1:30 pace for the first kilometer, and the last kilometer about the same. I'm trying to keep a good, strong pace going while I'm thinking about technique. So I do find you get some great coaches, some great swim clubs. And if you can go to the club, it's great to do that once or twice a week, because that's going to keep you going, keep motivation going. But a lot of clubs, especially triathlon clubs, but a lot of clubs, they don't do 400s for them is like, whoa, a crazy long distance. 800s they're not going to do. Some of the sessions are slightly overcoached for me. You know, I said lots of backstroke, all this stuff. So I go in, I do big blocks, good solid pace, focusing on one thing. Swim, pull everything together, pull buoy, elbow catch, paddles, body roll, fins, nice long stroke, really stretching it out. Snorkel, getting symmetrical. So you're not going to cover big distances if you're doing lots of small sets. Okay, those little 5 seconds, 10 seconds rest, it all adds up. So that's the way I did it. I really enjoy doing that. I still enjoy doing that sort of training. I do think sometimes people are overcoached. The coach has to find lots of different things to do because they feel that's what they need to do. But yeah, just give it a go. Try and do these longer, harder sets. And I think you'll find the benefit. Some people say, I can't swim long in the pool. I find it boring. I think that's mental toughness. Yeah, if you think you're bored, you know, you've got to think, no, this is mentally tough. I've got to get through this. If I've set myself a target doing 6 kilometers, when I suddenly think, oh, that'll do, I'll get out now, I've done all right, you know, you got to think, no, I've got to get to that distance I've set myself. You've got to keep it going. That's going to come back when you're doing your swim challenge. Because there comes points in these swims where you question why you're doing it. You know, the support boat might be beside you. You can get out whenever you want to. You've got to keep yourself going. You've got to ignore the voice inside your head that's saying, oh, you can get out now. And you've just got to do the distance. Just get in there, do it, set those targets and hit them. Okay, so mental toughness, obviously you're going to get that a lot in the open water, but it does count in the pool as well. You've got to do it. Acclimatization is obviously a massive factor in these swims. So you can't just rely on the pool-based stuff to acclimatize for the colder water. You have to get out there and do some long, hard swims in colder climates. So, you know, you're starting off with, you know, when the water temperature is sort of, you know, 13 degrees, 14 degrees, you're starting to sort of get in and do some longer swims. And, you know, your qualifying swims for the English Channel is going to be a 6-hour qualifying swim. It's different if you're doing a relay swim. But if you're going to go for one of those big swims where you can't wear a wetsuit, you can't replicate that in the pool. You obviously have to get out into the open water, into the cooler water, and put in the distance and time. And that is where you might want to find other swimmers, a club, a group of other people who are going out there. For example, there's clubs down in Dover where they're going for regular swims. You know, you've got your serpentine swimmers. There are these groups who come together and they're doing long swims in cold water. And that's really going to help you. Also, as I said, building up those other events. You know, sort of doing, if you're in the UK, you'd be looking at Coniston, Ullswater, Windermere. Ullswater 2-way is an ideal distance where, you know, you're doing 14 mile, but, you know, often the water temperature there at the start of the season is under 16 degrees. So you've got your fitness level, which you've built up. You've got to also build up your acclimatization. Some people, you know, it's down to body size makes a difference. The more meat you've got on the bones, the easier it is for some people to be in the open water. But a lot of it is actually getting in, keeping up a good pace by having that good that good technique we've been talking about, the good technique and being able to hold a good pace to generate some heat. So if you're not wearing a wetsuit, you've got to keep yourself moving, especially if you don't have, that much body fat. But it is important to get out there in the sort of the colder waters and just build up that distance and get used to it. It is mental and physical. Obviously, hypothermia is real. I do winter swimming, and that's very different because we're in for maximum a mile. Generally it's 450 meters, 500 meters, maybe a kilometer. But it's a set time, and you're going to get out. If you can swim hard, you can be in for 20 or so minutes, whatever it is. You're getting out. For these long swims, you're in hour after hour after hour, and you're cold, a bit miserable probably, and you've got to sort of find ways of coping with that. And that's what you can't replicate in the pool, and that's what you've got to do in the open water. And as I said, find other people if you can, swim with groups. There's overseas training camps for that sort of thing, UK training camps. You don't have to. Sometimes I think, some of the training camps are pretty hardcore. They're getting you in a lot and you get a bit miserable. You want to enjoy it at the end of the day. But yeah, regular, often build it up. As it's colder, start swimming. As it starts to warm up a little bit, you can start to increase your swims and do it safely. You don't have to go down the length of the lake. You can have a loop you're going around just to build that up. So that really is for people who, they're not wearing wetsuits and you're trying to go for those long swims. As you get closer to your big swims, you're going to want to test yourself and do some longer swims. Now, this is a bit of a balance. You don't want to do something too crazy. Otherwise, you might injure yourself. A lot of these swims, if the conditions are hard, you can pick up niggles, best technique in the world. For example, back in 2009, I swam the English Channel. I did my two-way Windermere swim quite close to the channel. And it's quite a cold day. Well, we swam through the night, quite a cold night. Bit choppy, so you're hitting the waves with your hands. So I did get my shoulders were quite sore after that one. And I didn't have that long before my main swim. But you do want to have these test swims where you're doing long swims. I've mentioned, we do have 6-hour qualifying swim you have to anyway if you're going to do a big swim. But yeah, you want to get out there and, really test yourself and try and do, you start off by doing a, 1 hour swim. You're going in for 2-hour swims. You're building that up. You're trying to do something which is about 4-hour swims. Now you can do this where you're going round and round a course. Or, you can find a interesting swim to do, where you're going, you're doing the distance, you're going end to end of a length of lake swim, which makes it quite fun because you're ticking off other swims that you might want to do. But yeah, doing those long swims after you've done all the distance, you've been building yourself up, you've been doing 8Ks in the pool, 10Ks in the pool, you've been doing those back-to-back sessions I've mentioned. There's a cumulative effect where you're building up and then you're going for your long swims and trying to do a few big ones so you can do some good distance before it. So again, that's another really important part of building up for your big swim, is setting yourself some of these other swims. Now, it doesn't always have to be in cold water, so what I've done before is go across to Lanzarote, and I swam Lanzarote to Fuerteventura, which is a lovely 16K swim, but it gets you used to doing a long swim, being next to a boat, getting your feeds, but the water there was 18 degrees. So not like the channel, but still it was quite choppy and it was a really nice swim I wanted to do. So, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be horrible all the time if you're doing big swims. You can do swims which are pleasant, but that's how you're going to improve each time you go out and do a longer swim. You learn something from it. You learn about feeding. Now, when it comes to feeding, I started off, I remember my first swims years and years ago. I used to have all sorts of stuff on the boat. I'd have blocks of marzipan. I'd have a sandwich in case I wanted something savoury. I'd have, different drinks, and, my feed bag was huge. Where, nowadays I tend to feed, I'll get the first maybe hour under the belt, maybe 45 minute swim. but then I'm feeding every 30 minutes. Not that much, but warm carb drink. And then I'm doing every 30 minutes. So I'm really quick. I'm drinking and I'm gone. Warm carb drink inside of me. Don't want to drink too much because then you're trying to pee and it's getting uncomfortable. So so you've got to get used to that by these long swims, these long training swims. What works for you? What feeds work for you? I like to have a few gels as well later on in my swim. But you're only going to get that through practice. So you do all your pool work and then you've got to get some real-time practice in the open water to know how you cope, with these longer swims, how your feed team, the people who are giving you the feeds, what they need to be ready for, trying to get the feeds quite streamlined. I don't chit-chat to my crew when I stop for a feed. I drink, thumbs up, off I go. I'm not, everything good, off I go. I'm not getting a conversation about how my shoulders hurt or how cold it is. You've just got to get on and do the business, really. That's only going to slow you down, chatting away. So yeah, so so we spoke quite a lot already, but open water training, those big swims, really useful, and try and set that into your plan. You're going to have your big swim. A couple of months before, you might want to be doing something else. A month before that, something else. So try and fit other things in. And some of them are going to be tough, but try and have some fun ones as well. Try and enjoy yourself. My recent swims, just a little bit of experience from that one. The Cook Strait, I was there for a few weeks before I got a chance to swim. By the time I did swim, we'd lost the slack tide, so it was quite strong currents. There was somebody else started at the same time as me, and she didn't make it because she just wasn't quite fast enough to get through the tide. She got within 5 kilometers, I think, and never got any closer. So I swam hard the whole way. Water temperature was fairly fresh, and no wetsuits, few jellyfish stings, and you've just got to. There's a voice inside you thinks, yeah, your shoulder's hurting a bit now. You're pretty injured. Maybe you should just quit, and you've just got to keep going. If I'm in the pool and I get a sore shoulder, I'm going to stop and make sure I don't injure myself. When you're doing the big swim, I basically said to myself, right, they're going to have to pull me out the water. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. Even though there's a voice somewhere in your head going, oh yeah, you can just get out now. It's not working out. You're not feeling great. Felt a bit sick now. You feel a bit queasy. I was a jellyfish sting. I was a second one. No one would mind if you got out. And you've just got to ignore that. You've got to get used to ignoring those voices and just think positive things and just keep on going. Just keep on going. And you get that from all this work you're going to do in the pool and just trying to control that when you're doing the big challenge. So I hope that's been a little bit useful. I'm just checking down my notes here, I've sort of covered everything. Yeah, I think I have. So any questions, please drop them down below. I'll look at them, I'll try and answer them, or I'll do another video. If you're around the area or even outside the area, you want an endless pool session, check out my website, Ullswater Swim Place. You can book there. It'd be great to see you. If you're in the area, come for one of my open water sessions through the summer. But thank you very much. So if you're building up for a long swim, again, set your distances, set your goals, and go for it. Yeah, that's my final thing. It's hard to imagine doing those sort of distances in the pool and in the open water unless you've got that target to aim for. Once you've got, I'm going to swim the channel, I've got my date, I'm going to do an Ironman, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Once you've got that challenge, when you get to do your training, it's easier. It just is, because you're doing it for a reason. If you're training and there's no goal there, it is a lot harder, and it's hard to even comprehend doing some of those big distances. So, if you've been thinking about it, set yourself that goal, go for it. Now's the time. And good luck. I hope you enjoy your training. Hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, like and subscribe. Any questions, please put them down below. Thank you very much.